I finished it probably a month or two ago. It gets 4.08 on Goodreads. This was super interesting. So I went to his exhibition in Melbourne and saw a lot of his amazing, haute couture and runway shows and the dresses involved in them and other clothes. But then, out of nowhere, my auntie and uncle got me this book for my birthday. It sat on my shelf for a while, and then all of a sudden I got the urge to read it, and I am so glad I did. So Lee McQueen is his real name. I think is it Lee Alexander McQueen? I can't remember. I'm already forgetting. But yeah, Lee is his first name. Very tough, interesting life. You don't have to just read this if you're interested. If you're not interested in fashion, you can still read this. If you want an idea of what the 90s and 2000s were like, if you want to just look into the mind of a creative genius, he was on another level. Unfortunately, like many people thrust into the limelight, drugs were involved in his life and bad relationships, but I really enjoyed it. There's photos in the book. So, with a lot of biographies, I always like it when they're like this. They'll show you their childhood photos. They'll show you photos from when he was famous with different actors and actresses and models, mainly models in this. So this is with Helena Christensen, one of my favourite 90s models, and Carla Bruni. Just wild times. So this was written by Andrew Wilson. Of course, Alexander McQueen is not with us anymore, but I think Andrew did a pretty good job. I prefer it to be an autobiography when I'm reading something, but yeah, this was well put together and a great view into his life. Fun fact, it turns out he actually lived on the same street I lived on in London at one point, obviously not at the same time, and we would have been 2 doors down and opposite, which is really cool. But yeah, that's my first suggestion. My second suggestion is one of my favourite guitarists and from one of my favourite bands, Keith Richards. This book is amazing. It's huge. It is very big. But he has lived an incredible life. It starts from his early life in England, but I'm trying to think where. I can't remember where exactly. And then how he meets Mick, how they form the band. The whole vicious cycle of not just forming a band, but trying to keep that band together. Fights, breakups. Obviously, they're still touring together, so they still get along. But it talks about how like Keith and Mick had such different views on life and opinions and interests. This is a musician's musician, a true guitarist, and he'll talk about when he was in Jamaica. Why am I having a blank? And all sorts of other places. What they were like in the US back in the 60s when that sort of music wasn't loved in the Bible Belt and all the issues that came with that. You'll hear about crazy stories involving tons of sex, drugs, drug-fueled, music-filled craziness book, but it just shows you his sort of roller coaster of a life and where he's ended up. I don't believe he takes drugs at all. I don't know if he drinks anymore, but there is a lot going on in this book. Let's pick a random page and read it. The Rolling Stones spent the first year of their life hanging places, stealing food and rehearsing. We were paying to be the Rolling Stones. The place where we lived, Mick, Brian and I, at 102 Edith Grove in Fulham, was truly disgusting. We also made it our professional business for it to be so, since we had little means to make it otherwise. We moved in the summer of 1962 and lived there for a year through the coldest winter since 1740. As records attested, and the shillings we fed into the meter for warmth, for electricity and gas, were not that easy to come by. It was mattresses and no furniture to speak of, only a threadbare carpet. There was no fixed rotation between the two beds and a couple of mattresses, and it didn't really matter much. Usually all three of us would wake up on that floor, where we had the enormous radiogram that Brian had brought with him, a great 50s warm-up number. This is the life. Believe it or not, I haven't forgotten any of it. Thanks and praises. And he really did remember so much to put it down onto paper. I lent this to my mother. She also really enjoyed it. So, the next is a book I have not read yet, but it is my next book I'm reading, so I've got about 100 pages on a fantasy book, and then I get to read this. This is A Cook's Tour by Anthony Bourdain. So I only discovered Anthony Bourdain recently. I know that's criminal, I apologise, but I started seeing some of his videos of his travels and eating around the world on Facebook, and I went down the rabbit hole of discovering more about him as a chef, a travel writer, a food show host. So all the videos I've watched are him going to amazing, interesting cities around the world, discovering the local cuisines and what's popular, what's weird and wonderful, what tastes good. He was, because he's passed away now, a very interesting man, and I know I'm late to discover it, but I'm so glad I have. This is the stuff of real writing. Bourdain is a great original. Let's read the back. Anthony Bourdain, lifelong line cook and best-selling author of Kitchen Confidential, sets off to eat his way around the world. But being Anthony Bourdain, this was never going to be a conventional culinary tour. Bourdain heads out to Saigon, where he eats the still-beating heart of a live cobra, and travels deep into land-mined Khmer Rouge territory is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. That's a beautiful photo, by the way. So I've been a Matthew McConaughey fan for many, many years. I think he's incredible. He's such an amazing actor and a really interesting person, and he seems humble. He seems like a family guy. Dallas Buyers Club was one of the most incredible acting journeys I've watched. He truly shone in that and deserved the award. I've loved him in a lot of other stuff too. Naturally, I'm drawing blanks on some of it right now, but I just find it to be very impressive, and so I had to read this. A renaissance man on the big screen, McConaughey shows he is the same on the page, mystical and spiritual, but mostly just wonderful. Green Lights is an inspired memoir that celebrates the idea that it's the journey rather than the destination that will fulfill us. God, I couldn't talk then. Look, I am the exact same. I feel that it's all about... Hey, I want to bring this microphone up. Seems too low. There we go. I truly believe it's all about the journey. I've been trying to change work industries for a year and a bit now, and if I got stuck on getting to where I wanted to be and didn't enjoy the journey, then I would have had a bad last year. But instead I'm always happy, and I love life, because you never know how long the journey is going to take, so you've got to enjoy every minute. That's why I really gel with his reading and who he is as a person. I'm kind of similar. This book is a little bit philosophical. He definitely gives you his ideas of what it's like to live well and what it is to be a humble, kind person. Yeah, this will give you the journey of how he got into acting and what people thought of that, and then where it led him. The segues he took, because he is a rom-com actor, and then he took a break, and he kind of wanted to break the mold. He's the sort of guy that wants to try new things, and then it goes about how he broke the mold and got into drama and action and became a deeper actor. It's well worth a read. On Goodreads it got 4.21, which is huge. Also 4.08 for Anthony Bourdain and 3.88 for Keith Richards. I forgot to say that. So this book's got photos, and it's got it looks like a journal. A lot of how he wrote this was by journaling. I believe he went out to the desert to write it, and it's also through the journals of his life. The Art of Running Downhill, Part 4. Let's pick a random thing. A black car picked me up at 11 AM and drove me to the studio in Fairfax. There was a makeup artist, a costume designer, a director of photography, and a crew of around 30 people. Around 1 PM I walked onto the set as best man at the Lennon-Ono wedding. The book is like a police lineup lit with limelight. John had a heavy heroin problem. Paul kicked off girls like grapes. As young, hungry rockers playing in Hamburg, the Beatles contracted and were cured of any number of venereal diseases. Later, rich and famous beyond anyone's wildest imaginings, they would become infected with incurable jealousy and suspicion. 4.09 on Goodreads. Essentially, if you're a Beatles fan, give it a read. It's classic musicians, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Does it ever change, especially in the 60s? But I found it really interesting. It took me a while to read. I just chipped away at it on and off. I wouldn't say it was a smooth read in a way. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for biography. But I enjoyed it nonetheless, and it's just an option for you guys. The next one is another musician. Gary Kemp. I know this much. So I got this from my mother for Christmas one year, and I had no idea who Gary Kemp was. I googled him and found out he was from Spandau Ballet. And yeah, I just started reading. After I started reading it, I started looking into their music. I was like, oh, they've mentioned this song Gold. I wonder what that sounds like. YouTubed it, hit play. Of course I recognise this song, so they were huge. 80s band. Some of you may know them, some of you may not, but this made for a really interesting read. When you've been in one of the most successful bands in the 80s, hung out with all and sundry, partied hard, seen friendships break up and break down, gone from art rock to stadium pop, written a number of certifiably classic songs, found yourself and your bandmates adrift and encore, and pretended to be Ronnie Cray for several months, then you've got a story to tell. It could be the story of a working class kid disappointed by the guitar he got for Christmas. The previous year's lunar module was much better. Who went on to use the instrument to make a life unrecognizable to his parents. Or the story of a teenager who joined the chemically fueled, Bowie-fixated glitter ball Soho scene of the late 70s, got up to his tartan waistband in soul music and obscure artistic references, and then ended up playing to millions around the world, not to mention Live Aid. Or maybe it's the story of what happens when a boy becomes a man and then a husband, a couple of times, and when a son becomes a father, then watches his own parents grow old. Actually, I know this much is all of these, brilliantly written by Gary Kemp in a style that entertains and surprises. It evokes the wonder and strangeness of living at the heart of it all. So he wrote it himself. It's a really great insight, not just into the band, but into the 80s. Their drive to outdo themselves in music videos. And fashion. Fashion was such a huge drive as part of their aesthetic, their look. There's this amazing part in the book where Spandau Ballet are at a house party or an after party or something, and this kid starts talking to him, or teenager or whatever, and he's like, I love Spandau Ballet, they're amazing, you're amazing, blah blah blah, I'm in a band myself. And Gary Kemp's like, oh, what band are you in? And he's like, Duran Duran. And I just got goosebumps when I read that, because then Gary Kemp says, as soon as I heard him say the name of the band, I knew they would be huge. Imagine next, got two more I want to show you. Let's do this one I haven't read yet. I'm going to show you this one. I found it on the bookshelf while I was pulling all these books down and decided to bring it with. It is Life on the Air by David Attenborough. I grew up watching David Attenborough, as I'm sure many of us did, and I absolutely adore him. I'm not surprised he has a book out. I'm sure he's got many. But I saw this on the shelf and I decided to bring it with just to remind myself that it's around and to tell you guys about it. David Attenborough wears his achievements lightly, and there are as many laughs here as there are animals. Michael Palin. Attenborough's familiar voice comes through in every line. His curiosity is sharp today as it was when he started in broadcasting nearly 60 years ago. David Attenborough is one of the most influential, admired, and best-liked figures in television. When, aged 26, he applied for a job in the BBC, which then meant radio. He was promptly turned down, but someone saw his rejected application and asked, would he like to try television? He would, and almost 60 years later, he is still at it, elegantly told, often very funny. Here is his story. So this gets 4.41 on Goodreads, which is epically huge. It's now on my to-read list. There's always a big list, but I really want to read it. I just wanted to put that in here quickly for you guys as an option. My favourite, it's got some photos in there. I don't like to look at the photos until I've got to that part in the book. I feel like it's cheating if I skip to the photos, so I don't really want to pay too much attention to that. I'm going to finish on one more book and then tell you about an audiobook I've been listening to. Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is a huge book. I bought it and I can't remember if I was actually excited about it. I grew up loving Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it's almost part of my past. I don't see him in really many movies anymore. But I thought, you know what? I know some about him. And I feel like I respect him enough to read his book. And then I read his book and I respected him even more. He has done so much to go from being a bodybuilder and not knowing much English to changing to moving countries to become the best bodybuilder in the world, Mr. Universe, to start a company, setting out. It was a mail order company on workout guides. He started working in construction, flipping houses, flipping apartment blocks, and building that. He then said he'd become the highest paid actor in the world, and he did. He became governor. He has a farmstead. He's just a really interesting man that's done so much. And I would recommend this for anyone that loves any aspect of his life, whether you loved his films, or his bodybuilding, or him as a politician. He's an interesting man, and I feel like you can learn a lot from him. He's made mistakes. He had an affair. His marriage broke up. But I feel like he's come out the other side regardless. And yeah, I've always respected him, but I respect him even more after reading this. And he's certainly given me some life advice through reading his book. This got 4.15 on Goodreads. So the audiobook that I've been listening to lately is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's about the creation of Nike. I noticed lately that Spotify have audiobooks, and I decided to listen to it when I could figure out what music to listen to, and I am books review. I've never read mystery books. I need to do some research. I need to buy some books and try them out. So I might still do another fantasy book review before I do mystery books. But at some point I will do it. I've always wanted to read mystery books, so I'm actually excited for that. What are some of your favourite genres? You know, I'm happy if you suggest a genre for me to do a book suggestion